This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Welcome to the Spirit Sessions podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us, where I'll help you find your true spiritual home, where every single aspect of you is holy ground. Holy ground.
This is a journey into sound.
This is a Spirit Session podcast with Katie Silcox. Venga chicos, empezamos.
Hey there, beautiful. So I just want to ask you a really important question. What are you going to do with this one sacred and precious life? Because here's what I know. I know that the listeners of our podcast are spirit seekers. And if you're anything like me, you may sometimes feel more than a little bit bummed out and astounded even by the state of the world today. It can be super disheartening to read the mainstream news and be told that there is no cause for hope and no future to delight in. And you know what? I call bullshit on that. You see, we really do live in polarized times. And so much of what we talk about here in this podcast and in Shakti School is what the brain does when it's polarized. It's the opposite of healing. It actually causes inflammation to live in that fight, flight, freeze, polarized state of us versus them. But I personally really do understand the feeling of being stuck and being anxious about the state of the world and even the state of our lives. You may feel like your life is not turning out the way you envisioned. And some of you who are listening to me today may feel like, oh, you know what? My life looks like everything is going great on the outside, but on the inside, it's a totally different story. In my experience of working with literally thousands of women all over the world, I have found that every single one of you out there wants the same thing. You want to feel more fulfilled, more joyful, more alive, more creative, more self-empowered, and more connected. And perhaps most importantly, what I've seen is that women want to feel like they belong to themselves. They want to feel like they belong to themselves and they can connect with a community and make authentic connections. But what I also see is there's a deep missing link that is keeping us from this longing. We know we want personal and collective empowerment, but we're not sure how we can get there. And I'm not talking about Pollyanna, only love and light type self-helpy spirituality stuff. I am not talking about just taking a yoga class or, saying some positive affirmations and lighting some incense and maybe doing a moontime ritual and thinking that everything's going to turn out okay. I'm talking about something a lot deeper and a lot richer. I'm talking about the best of ancient mysticism meeting modern neuroscience. I'm talking about the best of folk medicine meeting and, yes, appreciating modern Western allopathic and functional medicine. I'm talking about smart people who have massive hearts. That is what we are doing over here at Shakti School. It is the opposite of polarizing. It is unifying. And after all, from everything I've studied, that still is the meaning of the word yoga. I believe that every single human being on this planet is longing for the same thing. We all want to feel real. We want a direct line to something beautiful and infinite. We can call it God. We can call it the universe. I mean, hell, you guys can call it the great universal cosmic crystal yoni palace. You can call it what you want. And it's what we're all wanting. And you may be thinking, yeah, but not everybody wants that, Katie. What are you talking about? And I'm saying to you, yes, they do. Every time we overeat, every time we binge on alcohol, every time we do drugs, every time we watch porn, whatever, overshop, freaking get in a fight with someone on Instagram. Every time we do that, it is just a covering over a deeper longing to know that infinite love. The bottom line is that we all want the incredible confidence and empowerment that comes from knowing exactly who we are and what our personal soul DNA is and what we were made to do on this planet. And we need the tools and practices and support to be able to manifest that purpose in the world. Guys, without tools and without that personal divine connection, I don't care how much money you have, how powerful you are in the world, how many supplements you've taken, how many G-spot multiple orgasms you've achieved, how many sauna ice baths you've dunked yourself into. Without spirit, life is going to be really difficult and a hell of a lot less fun. In my opinion, the people that are going to not only survive, but deeply thrive on the planet in the next few years are the people who are not building themselves up on sinking sands, the sinking sands of our modern culture, but who are solidifying themselves into an enduring force of love and power. When you have that kind of connection to your own soul's mission and a spiritual force on your side, there's literally, I don't think there's anything you can't accomplish. When you have a connection to your realest self, your truest purpose, and that spirit that lives inside of all of us, guess what? You become a lightning rod for attracting the right people and circumstances into your life to fulfill that mission. And you become a lightning rod for being able to transmit and channel a higher purpose into the world. You become a lightning rod for creativity. Guys, that means you can supercharge your business. You can finally write that book you've been holding back on. You can better your health. You can invent a world-changing technology. You can create beautiful art, become a better lover, and become a better parent to your kids. Your confidence to speak your highest truth and stand in your conviction as your best, most loving, courageous version of yourself is really what it's about. I want a powerful tribe of lionesses prowling this planet. And it doesn't matter if you work at the drive-thru at McDonald's, which, by the way, we have women through our scholarship program that have done that, or if you are the CEO of some company and work in a high-rise in New York City. We have those women in our course as well. But both of those women need a system. We need a method. We all need a science-backed way of altering our brain and healing our hearts. We need a course of instruction that's going to take us from point A to point B, where we go from feeling afraid and powerless to feeling courageous and supported and seen and wanted. And that's exactly why I created this school, Shakti School, and why I created Ayurveda School Level 1. This course offers you a structured system backed by thousands of years of research and a team of over 15 expert teachers and staff who are going to make you laugh and cry and will stimulate your mind and your energy body more than any other course on this planet, and I stand behind that. You will learn my own translation of feminine form, mystical Ayurvedic medicine that will tap into something your intuition already knows, and that is that you, dear listener, know how to heal yourself. And it all starts with love and compassion. In this course, yes, we go into the basics of the Ayurveda worldview, but it doesn't stop there. You will learn conscious self-sovereign sexuality, herbology, moon rituals, astrology, mantra, yoga for your doshas, goddess manifestation and empowerment, somatic trauma release, nervous system healing, Ayurveda for women's issues, fertility, postpartum, and menopause, as well as my signature approach to holistic medicine that understands that we are not just our imbalances and our diseases. We are spiritual beings here on earth to learn who the heck we are. And that's just a short list of what we are going to be doing over here in 2022 Level 1. In this course, you are going to get all the practical tools you need to up-level your life and supercharge your dreams. I guarantee that you will go from being a spiritual wolf howling alone, perhaps in the darkness, to a member of a community who can hold one another in conscious support. You will learn what exactly is blocking your light and your success, and you will release your patterns of self-sabotage. You will get the tools that you need to navigate this upcoming year so that even the challenges that we are all going to face, they are going to become the seeds of our new potential. You will go from living a life of pain that pushes you to a future vision that pulls you. Ayurveda School Level 1 is unlike any other online course. And it's not because there aren't other amazing Ayurveda schools out there, because there are. But we are different because this is feminine form Ayurveda. It is a mystical healing path that not only bows and honors the ancient rules and technologies of India Ayurveda, but also offers a universal medicine-centered approach that defies time, geography, and ethnic background. It's a system that allows women to unfold their healing from within their own intuitive heart. Here at their school, there are no gurus. There's just a safe, healing, fun, inspiring, intellectually rich, emotionally intelligent place for you to awaken the guru within. And this isn't just my lofty opinion about my own baby. We literally receive daily testimonials from our students that make me and my staff, at least me, weep with joy. Like this one, I just got this one from a current level 1. It says, Katie, thank you for changing my entire life with your school. I've cried so many happy and healing tears, so much compassion and endless laughs with you throughout the year. And on top of that, all that wisdom. I must say, when I signed up for Shakti School, it was very intuitive as I made a last minute decision with no experience of Ayurveda before. But I knew in my heart it would be magic. And I actually had no idea how much depth and realness these teachings would give me. And I'm realizing this is mainly because you've been our teacher and guide delivering this medicine in a very unique way. I hope to meet you in person and give you a hug and thank you, as you are such an important person in my own healing and soul's mission. Lots of love from a very grateful student. And I hope I meet you too in person and you know who you are. And that's just one of hundreds of students that have sent us their praise. But here's the thing, guys, and this is important. We only run this course once a year. It's a year-long program because we are committed to doing it live. We've done it now for 4 years, and we could easily make it a recorded course that would run all the time, be a lot less money, a lot less effort, but I feel like that would take away from the incredible energy that comes from all of us being together in a container throughout the year. And whether you're with us during the live class or you're watching it later as you're making dinner for your kids or taking a walk through the woods, there is a real container that we create in 2022. All right, guys, so it starts this January 12th, and we would absolutely love to have you. And yes, this is absolutely a course for people who want to add a money-making potential to their lives as a certified Ayurveda health coach. But it's also for any woman who just wants to take this for herself. We've had many students go on to become Ayurveda wellness coaches. They are incredible. They are inspiring me. They have, helped hundreds and thousands of people, but they've started podcasts. I've been lucky enough to write the foreword to several of my students' books. I love watching my students succeed and hopefully one day even go above and beyond what we're creating here. So it's here for you guys. We are here for you. And I hope we will see your shining face. I hope I get to meet you in school in 2022. And lastly, I have 4 amazing women supporting these efforts. We've got Sarah, Malia, Takesha, and Lindsay, and they have all taken this full course. So if you want to set up a coaching call with them to talk about the course and see if it's a good fit for you, the link to connect with them is in the show notes. You can also head over to theshaktischool.com, hit the Ayurveda link for all the information and an overview, a complete overview of the syllabus for 2022. You can also write my staff anytime. We're at info@theshaktischool.com. All right, beauty, thank you so much for listening, and may 2022 be a remarkable year for all of us. Happy New Year, beautiful people out there listening. This is your girl, Katie Silcox, coming to you. New Year's Eve, y'all. What are we doing? Are you at home in your designer sweatpants? How many of you out there have the coronavirus? How many of you out there have a friend or family that does? I think it's all of us. Let's just take an inhale and an exhale. You guys, if you're not on my newsletter list, you should get on it because we just sent out the funniest email that I've sent out in a while. So make sure you get on our newsletter list because that is where I send you guys so many fun updates, so many fun tips, stories. Get your booty on our newsletter. You guys, as you know, Ayurveda School Level 1 starts. It starts January 12th, and I want to meet you there. I want to see your face. I want you to turn your camera on, and I want to see your cat snuggling you, and I want to see you lighting your candles and telling your kids to leave you alone because you're doing Ayurveda School. That's all happening January 12th. We over here at the Shakti School are super excited about it, and yeah, it's going to be an incredible year. What are we doing today? Guys, we're going to talk about being an intensity addict. Oh, madre mia. You may be able to tell by the way that my voice works that I might be an intensity addict. Yes, my mama used to tell me when I was a little girl that she just wanted to take me to Broadway because I had so much drama running through me. And you know what? That's so great. And it's how God made me. And I celebrate the fact that I am a wild, wild princess. But there's a shadow side to that, as with everything. And I consider myself an intensity addict. Actually, I consider myself a recovering intensity addict. And, you know, I don't have any shame about it, maybe a little, but I'm trying not to, because here's the thing. As you start to release yourself from the denser and denser addictions, i.e., you know, the big ones, when you get rid of your alcohol addiction and your food addiction and your porn addiction and your shopping addiction, you start getting down to the more and more subtle addictions. And when we use that word addiction, what we mean is a habitual and compulsive tendency that is running unconsciously, that is compulsive, right? Compulsion is defined by the fact that you don't have conscious control over it. There's something else driving the system. And I'm a big fan of not bringing any blame or shame into this, because as we work with these patterns, we realize that the deeper down you go, the more you realize that these patterns are being compelled by one place. And that is the subconscious and the nervous system. And those two things work in tandem. That's why I really love Russell Brand and his whole approach to his own addiction and dealing with people who are addicted. I don't like the terminology that addiction, specifically to drugs and alcohol, is a disease. I don't love that terminology, because I think that it's actually an underlying nervous system impulse that's very much related to the, you know, history of our parents, but also the way in which we formed our attachment bonds. That creates our nervous system. And so what I want to talk about today is being an intensity addict, recovering from being an intensity addict, what some of the signs are that you might be an intensity addict, and what are some of the ways that we can come out of that. And as you let go of these more obvious addictions, what you start to see is the more psycho-emotional and energetic addictions that are underneath the surface. So what does Ayurveda say about this? Well, Ayurveda and many of these forms talk about the duality of reality. So the yin and the yang, right? And in Ayurveda, we call it the Brahmana and the Langhana. You can call it, as Dr. Claudia Welch says, Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. You can call it whatever you want, but our system exists in a world of swara. Swara is a Sanskrit word that means wave forms. We go up and we go down. We go up and we go down. And that is how the divine made us. And that is beautiful and wonderful, and it's healthy. And that's what we need. Right? If you've ever had a baby, you know there's contractions and then it rests. And then there's contractions and then it rests. Spanda, that original pulse of reality, is the nature of nature. It's the nature of us. It's the nature of the universe to pulse, to do a big bang and then rest, right? And that's intense, man. Like having a baby, I always think, when you're seeing people on online dating, a lot of times on the profile, it'll be like, no drama. Like, I don't want any drama. And I'm just laughing because I'm like, well, okay, but the underlying nature of reality is really dramatic. Like some of the time, right? If you're having a baby, that's drama. Okay. So now that we've established the fact that a part of nature is intensity and a part of nature is drama. But guess what? You're not having a baby most of the time, right? And the Big Bang certainly is not happening constantly. It was a moment in time. It was a unique experience. The true underlying nature of reality underneath the spanda, underneath the up and the down and the yin and the yang, the underlying nature of reality is something that's more stable. You could call it Shiva, right? This ground of being. So Langhana and Brahmana in Ayurveda are all about the fact that your body, to be healthy, it needs a certain amount of stimulation, which reduces, right? Which stimulates, reduces your tissues, like dry brushing and fasting, and those are all things that are good, right? Exercise, movement. And we have a certain amount of our experience needs to be building, stabilizing, grounding, heavy. And we pulse healthily in between these two polarities. What is the addictive model of intensity? Many of us are operating with an addictive model of intensity that says, I only want to live in one of these polarities, or I only want to live in the polarity itself. I'm not comfortable pulsating. I am not comfortable being in the middle ground in between. And so addiction to either side, whether it be Brahmana or Langhana, whether it be extreme activation or extreme deactivation, isn't helpful. It's not healthy. So how do you know that you're addicted to? We're going to focus a little bit more today on the more Langhana side of it. So more of the intensity, right? Signs that you might be an intensity addict. Well, there are many. I'm going to give you a few. One is you create drama in relationships, usually unconsciously. What does that mean? It means that in order to feel alive, in order to feel loved, in order to feel emotion in relationship, we need to kind of pick a fight. We need to become very jealous. We need to make up stories that aren't even real. We need to enter into push and pull codependency or narcissism dynamics where we don't feel that we're attracted to someone unless they are ignoring us. Or we don't feel attracted to someone unless they are coming at us full force with maybe even a touch of mania, right? Those would be examples of very extreme, right? But examples of drama in relationships. We see this so often in Hollywood. We see it and we've experienced it, right? Where, there's nothing better than makeup sex, right? Why? Because it's intense. You get really angry and then you're in an extreme form of closeness. Other signs. Maybe you're obsessively checking the news or Twitter, right? These places where we know Instagram, Twitter, especially the news and Twitter, are intensity machines. Their job is to push out and fabricate constant intensity. This is one of my favorites. This is where I love to get ensnared. We may also go into what Brene Brown talks about a lot, about story making. So guys, this is what's so humbling. And the more I learn about life and myself and try to become awakened in this precious lifetime that I have here on the planet, the more I realize how much I do not know about myself and how much that unknowing is actually dictating my experience. And it's just like super humbling. And Brene Brown talks about this story making. And so one of the things she says is really important is to really stop and watch what's going on with your thoughts. Now, this is not a new idea, but I love the way Brene frames it because I find it really, really helpful. And she says, the story that I'm telling myself about this is, and then you fill in the blank. And you may say it out loud and you realize that it's a little bit intense. It's a little bit dramatic. You may actually say it to someone else. For example, if you're in a relationship with someone. Hey, sweetie, when you don't invite me to your company dinner, the story that I'm telling myself about that is that you are ashamed of me, or you got a side piece that you don't want me to know about that you're hooking up with at work. And then your husband might say, oh my God, no, that's not true at all. I didn't invite you because I knew you were really stressed out and I didn't want to add one more thing on your plate, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. And so we do that for ourselves because, and this is how it relates to how many of us out there, listeners, we're intensity addicts. We don't even know it. Why? Because when your body enters into an emotional state, right? So state before story is a lot of times what happens. Of course, story can create state, but your body, your physiology, your emotion, you experience something. It's probably because you've experienced it many, 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 many times throughout your whole life. In fact, it may be an emotional state that you have experienced when you were in your mother's womb or even another lifetime. So we feel. And then our brain, especially the more nether regions aspects of our brain, and the midbrain, our amygdala, when we feel, our body kind of goes into alert, whether that be fear, anxiety, anger, or sadness, depression, lethargy. What the brain will do is it will then attempt to make up a story about the feeling that is related to your current reality, that gives a justification or validation for the state of your body. You guys, did you get that? That's banana sandwich. And we do that so we don't feel like we're crazy, right? So we're like, oh, I feel this. It's probably a pre-conscious feeling. And I immediately go to a story about it, right? This has happened to me so many times where I'm feeling a certain way. And rather than pausing and working with that feeling, I am making up a total story about how the worker men outside my window are literally driving me crazy with their hammers and their drills. And I just start going into a huge story about how the world is going to hell in a handbasket because there's nowhere to find peace and quiet. I start to just go down this really intense drama realm where I have made these poor construction workers arch enemy number one, right? When really they weren't making that much noise, and the state that I had definitely preceded the sound of their hammers. Okay, guys, you guys see what I'm doing. So what Brene Brown has taught me is that your brain gets a slight dopaminic reward for telling stories. And the more dramatic the story, the more the reward. The more dramatic the story, guys, the more the reward. So the ancient part of our brain that wants to keep us safe and alive gets rewarded for making up batshit crazy stories. all of us have the tendency to move more into that realm of the untrue and the overly intense or the overly dramatic. When we realize that, that's taking our power back, and it's actually the pathway to enlightenment. It's pausing and disidentifying with the story, knowing that it's so likely that there is an excess amount of intensity and untruth related to this story. What are other signs that you might be an intensity addict? This doesn't tend to be mine, but some of you out there overwork and you have like a crazy job and a crazy busy schedule and you have a crazy boss or a crazy coworker. But guess what? You don't leave. There's a part of you that like secretly and perversely likes it. You could also see that in relationship. How many of us out there know someone in a relationship where it's so bad and it's so drama-rama and they complain about it all the time, but they really don't go. They stay, right? It's an addiction. How many out there, listeners, have ever felt addicted to someone? Man, I know I sure have. Thank God. Holy Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. I'm not in that anymore and never will be, because I'm an intensity addict in recovery. And, just like we have those sober apps for Alcoholics Anonymous, I wish we could create one for Intensity Addicts Anonymous, but really we can't, because this one's going to probably be around for the rest of our lives. We're always going to be grappling with the way in which we can seek out that excess intensity. What are other ways? Just kind of living a life that has really extreme highs and really low lows is a sign. A need to watch entertainment that's violent or porn, especially porn that's like ever more intense and violent and sort of out there. People who love horror movies. It's okay. By the way, some of these in small amounts are great, and we're going to get to that in a moment. Like your relationship to food. What tastes are you drawn to? Right? Are you, that's why in Ayurveda we have balance. We want to have all 6 tastes represented and nothing in excess. Are you really, really, really into super spicy foods? Are you into super salty? Some of you out there want sweets, and you guys know this. Like, I don't eat a lot of sweets. It's not where my intensity sits. I don't ever eat sugar, and, might have some blueberries or maybe a little bit of honey every now and then, but mostly I don't eat a lot of sugar because I get my sweet tastes from lots of places. Other than a lot of sugar, right? Like fruit is so sweet. Meat is sweet. Grains are sweet. Milk is sweet. So when I have like a piece of cake, which happens like twice a year, I feel like a baby just got handed like her first Oreo cookie. Like, I just feel like it's the sweetest thing I've ever had in my life. Right? So some of you out there are addicted to sweets. You're not addicted to sweets. You're addicted to intensity. Another way that it shows up is through our relationship to our spiritual practice and our spiritual teachers we choose. And this was definitely for me true until now, until, several years ago, actually, when I quit my relationship to gurus. And one of the things we can be addicted to is teachers or coaches or mentors who are like really controlling, or they're like volatile, right? Some of you out there may know what I'm talking about. And it's not just in the spirituality world, right? It can be a coach, right? Where they're just like belittling you or, quote, killing off your ego. That's an addiction to intensity. If your spirit, we've all maybe heard of these spiritual teachers that make you walk on hot coals or expose you to these intense elements. And, there's a time and a place for that, but not if that's the modus operandi. In more holistic spiritual traditions,
You don't do a sweat lodge every day. You don't go on an ayahuasca journey every day. This is something that you really prepare for and you learn how to come off of and recover from. But most of the time in your spiritual discipline with your teacher, you are in a very different state. And we're going to talk about what that state is in a moment. So if you find that you're going to all these workshops that offer spiritual catharsis and are going to like kill your ego off in a weekend, you might want to check in on your intensity addiction. Why is this happening? Well, it can be related to a number of different core nervous system states that we have the tendency to be in. So all of us can be in all of the nervous system states. But when people are holding a lot of freeze in their system, they might be addicted to horror movies, right? If you're in freeze, you might be addicted to violent porn or violent movies. If you're in a lot of freeze, you might want to like watch Fox News or maybe even the New York Times lately, right? You want to feel something. We need a high level of intensity to feel when we're in freeze. And that kind of pops us briefly out of freeze, but it doesn't heal anything. And we go right back to our core nervous system state. You can also be addicted to intensity. And this, again, we can hold a lot of these states, but you can also be in high vigilance. So that more fight flight, where we're trained to always be in a kind of low-key, intense awakeness because we want to be okay, right? And so if you're in that high vigilance all the time, what it creates is a sense that reality is intense, right? And here's where you're gonna love this. When reality is just reality, just go out in nature if you want to test this theory out. Initially, when reality is just reality, it's boring, you all. Just try it out. Just put your podcast down or don't. Just walk outside unless you live in New York City, right? But like for many of us, just walk outside. What's going on outside has a particular state and flavor and speed. And often that's really different than what happens when you turn on one of your screens. Can you feel the speed of Instagram or the news? Can you feel the speed of email? And now go outside and notice that speed. And it for me, who's an intensity addict, it feels really different. It feels really slow, and I'm learning and have learned that what I call boring is actually healthy. It's actually healthy, and I know when I've done long meditation journeys, what initially it just feels like a death sentence, right? I remember Pema Chodron talking about being in a 2-year period in her monastery with her teacher. And she said they were just doing their practices, right? But she said it felt like being boiled alive, right? So here's the downside of too much intensity. So intensity releases dopamine. We go and we get that quick hit. But then just like any drug, we need more each time. Even when we get the dopamine hit, we're never fully satisfied. Too much of this intensity desensitizes our brain and our nervous system to the beauty of the natural world and the body's 5 senses. Slow lovemaking, watching a sunset, making dinner, just listening to music with nothing else, receiving a massage, all these simple pleasures of life, just being in nature and watching the wind move through the trees, the pleasure in that is lost. So we can get this back. And I have pulsed in and out of these high intensity and more healthy states throughout the past several years. And I can tell you more and more and more, I need less and less and less. Walking down my stairs, I like to feel the cold smoothness of the banister. Taking my socks off and walking across a furry rug, I can finally feel how much pleasure is in just feeling the sensation of fabric on my soles of my feet. Standing in the sunset for a good 15 minutes without doing anything and just watching the way that as the sun sets, the colors in the clouds start to change. Those are all signs to me that let me know that I am beginning to resensitize my desensitized self. Now, don't get me wrong. I love myself. I love my drama. And I'm fun. I'm freaking fun. Y'all wouldn't listen to me if I weren't somewhat dramatic and entertaining. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with intensity and stimulation. It's great, but not when it's addictive, and not when it becomes the baseline for your experience. So what's the baseline? Ideally, the baseline should be peace. It should be ease. The baseline emotionally should feel neutral. The ancients called it santosha, right? The sense of satisfaction and equanimity. The baseline should be kind of boring, maybe initially. But then that baseline opens you up into something that's very much not boring in any way, shape, or form. It's pleasure, and it's simple pleasure, and this can actually be experienced as true bliss. Now, again, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with intensity, and I love it. Let's talk about, lastly, what are good forms of intensity? It's not so much about what they are. It's more about how much, and how much have you built in the baseline of peace. The more we have the baseline of peace and ease and neutral, the more our nervous system can handle more and more intensity without going over threshold. So good forms of intensity are things like a great sweaty exercise moment, hot sex, dry brushing your skin, a good cry that leads to a sense of relief, having a moment of spiritual catharsis, doing a sauna or a sweat lodge, doing an ice bath, or going outside and jumping into a cold body of water. All of these are great experiences of good intensity, but we, like having a baby, need them in small amounts. We need to not become addicted to them, and we need to make sure that surrounding all this good intensity, and by the way, I love a good fight with somebody. No, I don't. But you know what I mean? It's so beautiful. I had a fight with my very best friend. It was like the first time we'd ever had a fight. It was so weird. It was so freaking cool. And it kind of came up, and we sat down later and processed it and came out the other side even closer than ever, and in such a state of repair. Nobody likes makeup sex more than Katie Silcox. That would be a great t-shirt. We should not make that t-shirt. But what I'm trying to say, you all, is that good intensity is needed in life, and Mother Nature made us that way. But it only works if we have that good baseline of peace, ease, and neutrality, aka sometimes that feels boring, to hold the intensity. And guess what? It starts inside of you. And the best way to find it, I have found, is my spiritual practice. That's why everything we do here at the Shakti School is couched in that premise. It's an inner journey. It's an inner work of self-regulation and co-regulation with others, and especially the divine, who's got your back all the time. There's an endless reservoir of that which is infinitely peaceful. It's available. And tuning my attention to that enables me to handle more and more that place of intensity. And the great news is is that as you build that reservoir, that ojas, you're going to have way more energy to do all the fun and great things in the world that you want to do, like travel, like have sex, like do a killer workout, and all of the things that are going to inevitably happen that are going to stress us out and be taxing. So with that, my loves, here's to us celebrating the neutral and leaning in to that which may initially feel a little bit more boring. I hope you can prioritize the state of peace this new year. And I really hope to see you at our free webinar. It's January 2nd. We're going to put the link to that in the show notes. We're going to put the link to our newsletter. We're going to put the link to the most important thing is come join us for a year of learning how to be in that baseline, prioritizing the state of peace and having a ton of fun with me, because you know I'm going to bring a little bit of drama. January 12th, get your hot booty in the Shakti School. It's the only time you can come and study with me for the full year and all these amazing teachers we've got for you guys. All right, beautiful people, have a happy new year and can't wait to see you in 2022.
फूटे फूल अपन सुखे फूटे फूल